After a whirlwind day yesterday, I didn't have a moment to myself. Another day on my feet all day, discussing everything from layouts, curtain colours, which I will get to later, and other different logistical patterns. The day went well, everything was sorted, and I got back home to my email inbox, sorted a few things out in there, but there's still lots more to do, and arranged to see the new client this coming Friday with both the builder and the kitchen supplier. So that's all sorted and in the diary for Friday, which will give them a little bit of time to do stuff. Today is off to St John's Wood and also Primrose Hill. Primrose Hill is just a small little job with Ernest, the handyman, as you remember him. So he's putting some furniture together, and I'm just having a quick look over the house, sort of returning to the scene of the crime. In fact, that's almost the theme of the day. After I've done the Primrose Hill, I go over to St John's Wood, carry on what was started yesterday, and then I'm going over to a property which I put together for the clients back in, I was looking at my date, actually I tell you when it was back in 2012, which is a long time ago now, and it was just a rental property. I've not been back since, so I kind of want to see what the tenant has done to it. They've moved out, so it's empty, so I think we're going to be swapping some furniture around. Let's see what happens. In other news, the Chelsea house is going well. They've all moved in, and as far as I know are happy. There's bound to be a snagging list. The snagging list is something which comes at the end of a project, and it's all the little things, a touch of paint here, a loose handle or knob there, all sorts of just little bits and bobs that need to be dealt with. So the snagging list will be forthcoming, I'm sure. I would imagine in a few weeks' time, unless it's urgent, of course, if it's a sort of a water problem, and that's what that would be, but I don't think there's going to be anything like that. We would have known by now. So the Chelsea job is fine, and everything else is growing apace. The Reading job I'm over at tomorrow, so this has been a more complicated matter. I'm actually meeting with both clients, the husband and wife. This is to deal with, they have some concerns about the joinery. Basically, it's not really concerns about the joinery, it's about the depth of shelves. So they may want those narrowed. We've given them quite full shelves to accommodate. They have lots of hardback books of varying different sizes, but they may want to rethink it. It sounds like they do. They've agreed, obviously, with the actual initial plans, but I think they want some changes made. So that's all happening tomorrow morning. So here we are at part 105 of the Primrose Hill job. So today we are just having a quick look around here, seeing almost like a last look. There's a few things that have been sold that need to be taken out of here, so that still needs to be arranged. I'm actually waiting for the buyers to contact me via that. So I'm just going to have a quick pop down to the storage room, take a few things down there, and then it's off to the Primrose Hill job for some furniture building and some picture hanging with the lovely Ernest. One of the things I want to do before I do this is, because I'm going off to St John's Wood and actually having a look at another property, the property that I spoke about earlier, I'm actually going to just have a quick measure up of some of the furniture here, which is still yet to be sold. In an ideal world, I would move some of this furniture over there. It means that it's in use, we know where it is, you can have it back if you want to, and it also gets it out of here, because things sometimes take longer to shift, especially some items that perhaps are seen as no longer fashionable at the moment. Things like display cases, coffee tables, very specific coffee tables like we have here. So I'm going to have a quick measure up of those and see if they fit in the other property. So this is the storeroom, which comes actually with the property. So you will get this one with some properties, and it's quite a nice thing to have, as I've said previously. It just means that each property upstairs in this block, this mansion block of apartments, does actually have a little storeroom downstairs. Not all apartments have it, so it's actually quite coveted. But it just means that you've got a little bit of space to put things like suitcases, boxes, Christmas decorations, gardening stuff, empty packaging boxes, mirrors, artwork, anything that you think that you might need for something in the future, but you don't want to keep upstairs in your apartment. Very good to have it. It's completely dry, so nothing damp whatsoever. A really good thing to have. So we're done here for the moment, hand back the key and off we go. So here we are at the Primrose Hill property, a quick Uber over here. Ernest is working downstairs diligently, putting together some things for me, so I'm just going to have a quick whiz around the house, again returning to the scene of the crime, as I call it, just to see that everything is in place and everything is sorted out. It's been a few weeks since I've been back here on removal duty, and everything is looking good. I'm pleased to say everything is in. It's a much smaller property, as rental properties often are when people are moving out to get renovations done. So let's have a quick look, make sure everything is in place. One of the interesting things in rental properties is obviously they don't all provide a furnished service. So when you bring your own furniture in, some people have all the things that they need and some people don't. In this particular room, this is the housekeeper's room, who I also look after in my capacity as looking after these clients. And we have a single bed in here. What it doesn't have is a headboard. So the clients have asked me to actually get a headboard for the housekeeper. The reason why I'm doing this is twofold. B, it actually looks a lot nicer, and B, it actually is going to protect the wall behind. If you imagine when you move out of a property, you are probably going to be called on to give it a fresh coat of paint, or at least pay for that fresh coat of paint to go on. But there can be some damage which is caused from people sitting up and reading in bed. So it's actually much better to actually have a headboard on the wall. So this is actually going to be a single bed just here. And so we're going to be putting a headboard in that space. I've just checked the bed itself just to make sure that it has actually got the actual holes at the back of the divan, to make sure that the headboard, which will be on struts, will actually be able to be put on and fixed to the bed. So it's a normal sized single bed, so I should be looking into that and getting them something relatively inexpensive for the housekeeper's room. These are really steep steps here, which is quite interesting that they're actually in a house of this size. I'll show you them in a moment. They're quite perilous. We have a banister on one side, which we actually asked them to put on, but they're a little bit steep, especially for children. What we have done is actually put on some strips here, as you can see, so you don't slide off. Right, I'm just going to collect all my thoughts together and get the remaining list together for Ernest so he knows what he's doing on the upper floors of this house. How are you doing? Ooh. Ernest doing well as usual. There's a couple of other bits upstairs.
been doing well.
We're doing really well.
Really well.
Really well. Well, I think you're doing well. You're always doing well. There's some shelving to go upstairs. You know, the shelving that we took off in the other place, so that's got to go up. So many toys. So many toys. So that's 2 properties done for today. So we have 2 more to do, which this is nothing unusual, but this is sometimes how it goes. Ernest, as you can see there, is a lovely guy and knows me and generally all the properties that I work in, so he knows the clients. This is why it's so important to have a handyman that you can rely on, so you can send them in, sometimes in an advanced capacity and other times with you in tow, or sometimes with them coming along behind you. So always good to get somebody that you know. Just walking through Primrose Hill now. I'm going to grab some food because I haven't eaten yet and it is sort of coming up to lunchtime. And then I have already spoken to the removal people. They are going to be on site at 2 o'clock. A few things to be moved around at St John's Wood, which is where I'm heading now. And then to another property onto St John's Wood for the delivery of the sofa that we took out yesterday. All good stuff. And I'm going to guess I should be probably finished around about 4 o'clock today, just in time to get home for some more paperwork. Hello again and welcome to part 1 of the Regents Park job. Regents Park is a particularly nice part of London. It's right next to St John's Wood, where I do an awful lot of work, and it's also not so far away from the Primrose Hill job, where you know I've been doing some work. I've just come back to this flat, which I won't say renovated, I sort of did a cosmetic update to it back in 2012. And this really is returning to the scene of the crime. So there are many things which are still here, which are still working, I'm glad to see, that what I put in, but there's also been a few additions which probably need to go. The main thing that I've noticed is there seems to be an awful lot of stuff that the tenant has left behind. In particular, a sofa, which is down here, and an armchair down there, which I'll show you. There's a few other things as well. There's a table and chairs and other bits and bobs. And then the rest of the stuff is just the usual nonsense that tenants do tend to leave behind. I'm not entirely sure what the complete and utter remit is going to be for this particular property. As far as I know, it's going to need a repaint, it's going to need the carpets cleaned, it's going to need a bit of upholstery done, it's going to need the furniture cleared, it's going to need everything else cleared, and it's going to need a clean. Probably a builder's clean after the place is painted and sorted out. The kitchen that I put in 2012 has actually held up remarkably well. I'm not quite sure whether the tenant did hardly any cooking at all. I think there's a few bits and bobs that need to be cleaned out, like the oven, the usual stuff, but otherwise everything else is looking quite good. Now the interesting thing about this is perhaps it's not normally what you would consider an interior designer's job. So I am going to sort of design it or redesign it from what I did last time, which is going to be quite interesting because they don't want to spend a lot of money because nobody does with rentals. but some things do need to happen. There's a few things that don't need to happen, such as the blinds here. I don't think they're going to be wanting to put in curtains or anything like that. And the blinds that I actually put in before in the bedrooms are actually still working, so that's good. So let's have a quick flit around this 2-bedroom flat and see what's to be done. So we can start off in the kitchen, which is not too bad at all. And that is just looking pretty much straightforward. This is not granite, this is just a normal composite top. And kitchen sink looking all okay. The tiles have held up remarkably well. There is probably the cabinets that need to be sorted out. There's a few things that need to be got rid of. The oven will need to be sorted out. The fridge in here is looking okay. There's cupboard space as usual. The flooring looks actually not too bad. I don't think. It just needs a bit of a clean. Ooh. But otherwise that's looking so far so good. The living room is where most of the things have happened. So what has been here, whilst I came in here today, I have actually had this sofa delivered. So this has come from the St John's Wood property. So this is a very nice sofa. It's a good size, but it is very old. And what really needs to happen there is it needs to be reupholstered, which we'll do. So we'll look at getting fabrics for that once that's sorted out. The lighting is working okay. This is actually, I'm surprised that it's actually working okay. I think you can probably see them very well on camera, but that's actually looking quite good. We do have the addition of a rather peculiar table here. It's a rather strange one. It's obviously got like some kind of marble base with a glass top, and these rather sort of moth-eaten chairs. So those will actually have to go because they will be detrimental to actually renting the place out. But we also have this sofa and this armchair here. So here's the armchair, as you can see, a lovely beautiful grease spot there. And we have this sofa here, which is again very old. We do have this coffee table. Now this coffee table was left by the previous owners, so I actually do remember it from that time, but the owners just said, well, they need a coffee table, they want a coffee table, leave it in there and we'll just get on with it. But I've got a feeling that will go this time because it's just a little bit too old for what we have in here. What I do remember was this IKEA sofa. Now, this IKEA sofa has actually lasted, I think, quite remarkably well. And the good thing about IKEA sofas is they have covers. So you can just get a fresh cover from IKEA, and it will do just as well as if you've got a brand new sofa. Moving through to the hallway. Now the hallway is, it's actually quite a nice big space, as you can sort of see panning around here. It's quite good. We had a new carpet put down, nothing inexpensive, as you can see, and it's beige and more beige. It will need a good clean, and as you can kind of see here, you can see this is what happens when people come in the door. This is where the tenants have come in dragging their bags, so this will obviously have to be repaired and painted. So that's really the main thing that will need to happen. The ceiling actually looks remarkably okay. I think just one coat of paint will probably do this very well. We'll probably use a very hard paint, something like Dulux Diamond Matte, which will actually wear quite well in the hallway here, but it's nice and bright. There's a few bulbs that are out, but more on that in a moment. So this is bedroom number 2. Bedroom number 2 is actually, I think, remarkably well. They've obviously had some kind of I can't remember what was on here. I think it was a headboard, a wooden headboard, and you can kind of sort of just see the sort of things here that someone's just sort of like painted over the top. I don't remember ever taking the wooden headboard off myself, so someone else has done that. There's a few other things that need to be dealt with. You can see a little bit of damp coming in. I remember this being a problem from the original time that I did this. The owners, or rather the landlords of the building, said it wasn't an issue, and it possibly isn't an issue for a variety of different people, but I can't really leave it like this. So that will be filled and sanded and painted so that there's nothing else that's wrong with that later on. Bathroom number 2 is a really interesting one. It's totally and utterly old school. You've never seen anything like it. So you do have these rather fetching, shall we say, cabinets on the wall. You've got a mosaic sort of tile here, which is actually in remarkably good nick. So I can't really fault them on that kind of scale. I don't know whether they actually use this bathroom very much. We do have this cabinet. I remember putting this cabinet on the wall because the last one had broken. You do have a shower here. Again, I don't know quite how much that is working, if it is working at all. It looks a little bit off at the top, so we'll have to check to see where that's going. And obviously a loo down at the bottom, which is I think in good nick, will probably just need a clean, and a heated towel rail. So as far as I know, this bathroom is actually okay. It's looking a little bit old, it's looking a little bit tired, but it is functional, and that's the only thing that needs to worry about it. However, the other bathroom is another case entirely. So in here, it's going to look a little bit dark because half the lights are out, yes? This is obviously something which tenants sometimes don't do, especially when they're leaving the property. He hasn't actually changed the bulbs. In other words, there's only one light left, and that's that one. So it looks rather like an interrogation room, for want of a better term. Again, the tiles, as you can see, there it's really, really old school here. We've got this border going around. It's literally floor to ceiling tiles, and they've lasted actually quite well. We'd probably need to get a new loo, so that may be on the cards. And the bath with the screen, I think that probably needs to be changed because that's obviously very, very old as well. It's a funny thing about rental properties, and I suppose you have to think about it with yourself in mind. Would you actually rent a place like this? What would be the deciding factor for you? Is it about cleanliness? Is it about style? And I think for me, I'd be less worried about the style if I was going to rent it, even for a short period of time. But things do need to be clean and they do need to work. The master bedroom, such as it is here. It's a really interesting one. I've not seen this in a long while, but I do remember it from last time. If you can kind of see behind me. So it has the bed in the middle here, and it actually has the built-in wardrobes around. This is actually something which I think was a phenomena back certainly in the 1980s, and it carried on into the 90s, I think, when this was all done. So these are actually staying. They're probably quite useful because everybody needs storage, so why not? There's more storage areas here if someone did want to put something else in this spot. At the moment, someone's just left a random director's chair there, so that will stay there. But there's plenty of room for everything else. In fact, there was actually a built-in desk here, and the client wanted me to take it out last time, which I did. So that's no longer here, but everything else is working. The blinds, I'm actually quite shocked. These roller blinds are actually still working, and they're still in remarkably good nick, so they'll be staying. So that's the lot. So this is the Regents Park job. I'm not quite sure how much they want me to do. Again, I haven't spoken to the client apart from saying I'm coming over to have a look and deliver the sofa. So if he decides that he wants me to take on the rest of this, I can let you know how that goes. I suspect that'll be a reupholster, a quick paint around, cleaners in, and that'll be the end of it. I think there's a few obviously things to do with the lighting, but apart from that, there's nothing too drastic. I think we can have this turned around in a couple of weeks.